because today we have a special guest presenter with us, Mandy Elliott. Mandy.
Hi, everybody.
Mandy is the Executive Director for the Nevada Outdoor Business Coalition, and she's also a Small Business Development Center advisor with UNLV. She's got a marketing background, so she's really dived in with a lot of the clients at UNLV's SBDC Center to help get them set with marketing plans, strategies, and improving their business. And was it 6 months ago that you took on this new role? Yeah. She was made the executive director of a new and growing organization. So we're excited that we have Mandy here to talk about all of that with us today. Mandy, would you like to introduce yourself and talk a little to the audience here?
Absolutely. Thank you. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Thank you guys all for coming. And yeah, like Jamie said very graciously, my passions and interests really lie in the middle of the Venn diagram of the outdoor space and small business and entrepreneurship. And what I was very inspired by when I was talking with Jamie and Steven about Tech Alley. Yay, okay, so, anywho, my interests and kind of my inspiration for being here today, which Jamie and Steven really graciously allowed me the opportunity to join them, is because I see a lot of growth and movement in the outdoor industry across the United States. Hi, Marta. Hi.
Hi, Marta. Hi.
And what I'm interested in specifically here is I think there is a huge potential for growth in outdoor technology specifically, whether that be gear development or conservation or safety or community-based. There's a huge crossover potential and things that are already being taken advantage of. And I thought, well, what better place to do that than here in Las Vegas, where we have incredible outdoor access and also a really greatly building technology community.
Yeah. And one thing that's really nice about Mandy sort of crossing over between UNLV's Small Business Development Center and then taking on this other role in the community as the executive director for the Outdoor Business Coalition. Am I saying that correct?
Yeah.
I don't want to say it the wrong way. Is that she has such a tremendous network connected to UNLV and the innovation ecosystem that we're driving on campus. And for example, we just had somebody that walked into the room, Marta Soligo, Dr. Marta Soligo. She is an expert in travel and tourism and the impact on the economy, the impact on our lives and society. And well, let's just by show of hands, how many people in here are active in outdoor recreation or like to go outdoors and do these? Okay, look, everybody in here, wonderful. And how many people have ever gone onto, let's just say, for example, a really noisy outdoor recreation vehicle and noticed how it's disruptive to the environment you're out there trying to observe? I know I have had that experience myself. And years ago, before it became a thing, the whole idea of, gosh, if they could just have an electric four-wheeler or razor or motorcycle that we could go out here so that everything doesn't scatter every time we come through the canyon because we're so loud rumbling through here on our machine. That's just one little idea of how technology can integrate and create a more exciting, outdoor recreational environment. But that's just somebody who's casual, like myself. There are other people who are much more expert at this, like Marta, like Mandy, who can also see the potential for startup opportunities, that there's an economic impact for us taking these next steps and trying to grow technology and improvements in an area we all love. Since so many people raise their hands that they like to be outdoor recreationalists out here, I'm gonna guess that most of us also care that we maintain those recreational environments and have continuity so that we're not the only ones that get to enjoy it, but so do our future generations and the next people coming behind us. And part of what I know Mandy cares a lot about is seeing growth and more accessibility to reach new areas of the state, so more people have the opportunity to recreate outdoors and feel the joy of that, but in a way that doesn't damage the environment and doesn't cause further constraints and constriction out here. We have our presentation up.
Yeah. Okay.
Wonderful.
Perfect. So yeah, let me go ahead and just go through, I put together a little slide deck that kind of talks about the outdoor economy, why I think it's relevant here at Tech Alley specifically. I have a little bit of data on some outdoor startups. I have an ask for you all, and then we have space to kind of ideate or, talk or bounce ideas off or discuss some things that maybe come to mind during the presentation. Okay, so yes, as Jamie really kindly mentioned, like I said, this is me, my very first lead climb ever. I am the executive director for the Nevada Outdoor Business Coalition. Essentially, we are a chamber of commerce for outdoor industry businesses. We advocate at the local, state, and federal government level for outdoor industry growth, investment, business action. We really care a lot about community development. That's a big part of what we do. And then also, I am a small business advisor with the Nevada SBDC over at the UNLV Office of Economic Development. So both of my jobs are really, really cool, and I love them very much. It's amazing. I'm very blessed. So what I like to do is just kind of merge these two, which is what I'm doing today. Okay, so here's a little bit about the outdoor economy. And I've sectioned them into two different categories. So the state of Nevada, and then also the US, right? You can find this information pretty easily. Outdoor Recreation Roundtable is where I source a lot of this data. They do a great job in kind of calculating the economic impact of the outdoor industry. But I just want you to take a look at, in Nevada, the outdoor economy is massive. And that includes Southern Nevada, where we think a lot of the gaming and the hospitality and those types of industries, which are very, very important. Don't get me wrong. I think that they're, hugely, it's hard to argue that they contribute a lot to our economy. But my rallying cry really is that outdoor recreation is also a very huge and impactful industry here in Nevada. And you can see that with those data points. In the US, the outdoor economy, so thinking more broad scale if you're thinking about, innovating in this industry, the outdoor recreation economy contributes $862 billion to our nation's economy, which surpasses industries like mining, utilities, farming and ranching, chemical products manufacturing, and many more, I'm sure. Which to me is just amazing, considering that we don't hear about it very often. So that's just a little bit of, some data for you to consider how big and how impactful the industry is. Okay, so why here? Which, I feel like I've had this conversation a lot talking to people who aren't familiar with outdoor recreation or the outdoor economy, is how do we combine people going out for hikes and people developing and innovating, in the tech space. So why I thought that it would be a good idea to introduce the outdoor economy here at Tech Alley is because, like Jamie said, there is a really great potential for overlap in these two industries. So I put together some examples, and these are businesses and companies that exist that I think, and I pulled together the genre of business kind of based on what I think here would be conducive to Vegas, because, manufacturing is a little bit difficult. So the first category, we have community-based innovation. So I don't know if any of you guys have heard of Basecamp Outdoor Jobs and Gigs and more. Jenna Kelmer is the co-founder of that business, and she's doing a lot of really exciting and incredible work developing technology specifically for helping recreationalists or people who are enthusiastic about the outdoors break into the outdoor industry as far as jobs go. Lots of really cool development happening there. Outerly is a Washington, D.C. based startup that's helping to combat loneliness with the outdoors, which is really incredible. So two great examples of community-based technology development that's happening specifically in the outdoor industry. We also have a handful of businesses that are innovating in the conservation and safety space. My favorite example here is the conservation drones, which if you've ever gone out into Red Rock or any kind of space here in Southern Nevada, we have a lot of very vast desert. that would take forever to cover on foot, right? So the conservation drones, I believe it's actually a nonprofit, so I may correct my previous statement, but they're teaching people how to build drones and fly them in a way that is helpful to logging land for conservation, or seeing what kinds of geological things exist out there, what kind of like plants or wildlife exist out there, where you're not relying on people to go out on foot and potentially get themselves into dangerous situations. So that's a really cool initiative that's happening, that is another very clear crossover of outdoor industry and technology. Then the kind of the fun one for my fellow gearheads in here, gear technology is really, really active, and that's because people will invest in things that feel better when they wear them, or that ride better if you're, mountain biking or even road cycling, or if you're a climber, things that will make you safer on the wall. So gear tech is very active already, and to me very exciting, because I love to spend money on outdoor gear. It's just fun. So these are just a couple of examples of areas where development and innovation is already happening in the outdoor industry, that maybe kind of might get your gears spinning a little bit to see what kind of interests you. Where do you think you might be able to solve some problems that exist in the outdoor space? Okay, so as far as startups go specifically in the outdoor industry, I've been chatting with my friend Katie, who is a co-founder of Founded Outdoors, which is a entrepreneur community that exists across the United States, specifically for people who are building startups in the outdoor industry. And I asked her what was like some statistics that she found interesting, or how can I maybe like gather a little bit of more specific information on the folks that engage in her community and what specifically they're developing. And she said that gear development and specifically digital technology, so think e-commerce, apps, websites, etc., account for 25% of their founders. And honestly, that's kind of lowballing. I think it's closer to 30%. Which is really exciting to me. I mean, that's across the country, so how can we bring that crossover here to Vegas? The other thing that's very exciting that she pointed out to me was there is money available for this specific industry, outdoor technology, and that comes in the form of Wildwood Ventures. They just launched a fund or a program specifically for folks who are looking to build startups in the outdoor recreation space. Also wellness, so holistic healing or things that get us outside or make our lives better in general, which is super cool that not only are people innovating in the space, but there's also money for people who are innovating in the space. So I promise you this, it sounds a little crazy sometimes when I talk about outdoor business and technology, but it's out there and there's opportunity for it. So selfishly, I'm just looking to bring it here to Vegas. Okay, so here's again where I start to get a little bit selfish. There is some phenomenon, I don't know how this is going on, but it's true, and this is where I share that information with you. There is no existing outdoor industry accelerator in the western region of the United States. Mind-blowing. I mean, seriously, there are outdoor industry accelerators in the eastern region, in Colorado, of course. There are some in the southern part of the United States. There is not a single one in the West. That surprised me, and I thought to myself, why is that? I don't know, but there is opportunity for it, and I'm here essentially trying to gauge some interest in, if anyone's interested in innovating in the space, how can we bring that here? Because when you think about not just Nevada, but Oregon, Washington State, California, they're huge outdoor industry states, and they don't have spaces for innovation. So why don't we build that here? So to throw some more facts at you, Nevada has the highest percentage of public land of any state in the US. I think we have 86% of our land in the state of Nevada that is public. That is crazy. A huge amount of public land access that isn't matched by anyone else in the country. We are also the most mountainous state of anywhere in the US, which I've said many, many times to many people, and I will continue to say it, there is no reason Nevada cannot outcompete Colorado as an outdoor recreation state. They have the brand, but we've got all the land and all the mountains. And also, and this is where I get a little bit more opinionated, Nevada has some of the most diverse landscapes and access to diverse recreation opportunities in the entire country. We have activities here that I have never even heard of, including all the ones that are booming with recreationalists. Your ski resorts, your water sports, your boating, your climbing, your biking, and many more. I learned about sandboarding recently, which again, I didn't know was a thing, but we have it here in Nevada, which is just incredible, and I love that. So what I'm imparting to you, for those who have high-tech skills, in-demand skills, consider investing those skills in the outdoor industry. It's growing, it is established, it has a long history. And Las Vegas, I know I'm part of the Nevada Business Coalition, which is great, but like selfishly, Las Vegas is the perfect place to innovate in the outdoor industry, and that's kind of what I'm hoping we can chat about today. So I'm wanting to leverage all of these facts to help kind of bring more innovation opportunities here. Okay, yeah, so that's my ask. Consider innovating and building startups in the outdoor industry. It's a great industry. I won't harp on it anymore. We'll get to kind of the conversation piece, but I love it. I hope you can sense that. I'm very passionate about the outdoors and entrepreneurship. And so I just got back from a conference in Tahoe, talking about, kind of building that community there. What was the phrase that came out of everybody's mouth was encouraging entrepreneurship. We should be doing that here. And we do that here. Let's do that in the outdoor industry. Thanks. Thank you, Jamie and Stephen, for allowing me the opportunity to kind of, soapbox a little bit on that. But I'm excited to discuss with you guys.
Awesome. So I want to start off with some of the questions on there, because you put up an interesting stat that I was a little bit curious about. So how are we measuring the most mountainous? I am very curious, because I lived in the Rockies, right? I'm from Wyoming, like there are mountains there. And so I haven't seen that majestic part. I know it's up in north, but how is that measured?
Great question. I don't know. The place that I found that statistic was actually up in Reno this weekend, and I was like, oh my gosh, perfect, I'm going to include the stat. But it was in part of like the U.S. Forest Service. They have public land up there, which again, amazing access even in urban areas. And that statistic was on a nice little informational board there. I imagine, so they did mention we have the most peaks, so I don't know if that's how they're measuring. Okay. Nevada's a really big state.
Oh, no, well, it is, and I mean, yeah. we call it the Vegas Valley, right? And it's because we're surrounded by mountains, right?
Yeah, so maybe peaks that they're measuring.
That's awesome. So we would love to invite everyone into the conversation. So if you have questions you want to throw out, if you have input, if you have ideas, if your company is doing stuff in the outdoor and you're just kind of curious of how that correlates, we would love to have some of input from you guys as well. So I want to start. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yay, Marta.
Here.
Thank you.
Marta, here you go. This is for the recording.
Hi.
Hi.
Marta.
Hi.
Oh, it's so good to see you.
Hi everyone, I'm Marta, as you can understand. I'm the Director of Tourism Research for the UNLV Office of Economic Development. And so, we recently received a grant from Washington, from the Economic Development Administration. And the goal of this grant was to understand in the post-pandemic, if we can say we are in the post-pandemic, but to understand how we can diversify Southern Nevada tourism economy and its beneficiaries through three kinds of tourism. First of all, medical tourism, because apparently, increasingly, believe it or not, people are coming to Southern Nevada to undertake some kind of treatment. We have very interesting, excellence center for health. Think of the Lou Ruvo here in downtown. And right now, with all these sports coming, they are thinking about sports medicine. So that is one kind of tourism. Two, cultural tourism, especially in the historic West Side. And we know the history of the West Side, right? A very complex history in a neighborhood that experienced segregation. And so how can we bring respectful forms of tourism in that area, and if it's possible to do that, starting from the community, and sports tourism, right? Sports tourism, analyzing both people coming here to watch sports, spectator sports, as you can imagine that's becoming pretty big, and people coming here to undertake sports, so outdoor recreation. So all I can tell you is that we started with the idea, okay, with the research team, Amanda too, we said, okay, I'm going to come up with 3 reports: medical, sports, and cultural. And then guess what? I'm noticing the more I conduct interviews, the more we do research, that the 3 fields overlap. And outdoor recreation is playing an extremely important role in all of this, and small businesses as well. So think, for medical tourists coming here, what about recovery? What about the environment, of course not in the summer, that Southern Nevada can offer? We know that there are people who are suggested a dry environment for whatever they have, that they move to Las Vegas for that, increasingly. So the medical tourism right now is almost becoming part of the sports tourism category. And what about cultural tourism in the historic West Side? What about the importance of safe outdoor spaces for the West Side community? So interestingly, all these 3 topics overlap, and so this is why we're working also with Nevada partners in the historic West Side to understand how small businesses and technology and AI can not be a barrier for these businesses, but a help, a support for this kind of development. And I think this is very important because, as Mandy said, when it comes to technology, so I can tell you 3 things, like 3 themes of the past World Tourism Days. So World Tourism Day, the United Nations World Tourism Organization, every 27th of September celebrates World Tourism Day. And so a few years ago, I can't remember the year, so I'm sorry, but I think it was probably 2017, they decided to celebrate World Tourism Day and with the topic of tourism and technology. And what was interesting is that when we think about tourism and technology, it has always been, okay, what can Skyscanner do for tourism, right? How can I book a flight? How can I book a hotel? What can Expedia do for tourism? And instead, the World Tourism Organization said, why don't we use technology to help startups in tourism, maybe in Africa? African women startups who work with tourism. Or why don't we use technology to help agriculture in those areas, in those poor areas that have some potential for agri-tourism? So that was very interesting. And then I thought again, what about 2020? I was very curious. 2020, right? We're in the middle of the pandemic, September 2020. I'm curious to see the theme of that year. I was like, it's going to be tourism and pandemic, tourism and crisis. No, was rural tourism. Tourism in the countryside, tourism in agriculture, tourism in outdoor activities. Again, internet and small businesses playing a key role. And this year, we just celebrated in the same room with a similar roundtable, World Tourism Day this year, and was tourism and green investments. And what is interesting is that, again, investments not only in terms of money, but in people, startups, communities. So I think this, it's crazy how these themes, for someone like me who studies tourism all day, keeps coming up. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, and to build off of your point, Marta, which is another thing that's very unique about the outdoor industry as a whole, is it touches categories of investment and government operations and community development like no other industry that exists. And that's what's very fascinating to me. For example, I was in White Pine County a couple of days ago, and they are really focusing on investing in outdoor recreation because, again, they have a lot of outdoor access. But that isn't specifically driven by business, it's driven by community. And that again, is what kind of creates this like really stable economy. So you have government offices and local communities investing in the industry that therefore allows business opportunities to flourish, right? So it's so fascinating how they all kind of interact together like no other industry I've ever seen. And something to your point too, we've been chatting with Lake Mead, and as we all know, if we're here locally in Southern Nevada, water scarcity is a huge issue. Something that is impacting them in such a negative way that they're looking to invest in research of how we can kind of combat that issue. That's all part of the outdoor economy and allows opportunities for innovation that people might not think of when they're only thinking about recreation.
And this is very interesting because we have a trend here, especially in the post-pandemic, and again, I don't know if it's really post, but we see that after 2020, as you can imagine, outdoor recreation and tourism experienced a crazy growth. Everyone wanted to be outside. Every kind of tourism, they don't want it to be in closed space, spaces, social distance. So this increase in the outdoor recreation is increasingly matched by, unfortunately, climate change. The increasing problem of climate change. So what happens when you have too many tourists, the so-called over-tourism, creating carrying capacity, we use this term, carrying capacity issues in the destination. What happens when in a destination or in an attraction such as Lake Mead, the resources that are there are not enough for both tourists and the locals, for example, right? So this is kind of what we are trying to understand too.
Marta.
All right, absolutely. I will be around if you have other questions. Yeah, thank you.
So I am going to put Kyle on the spot. He just walked in. You can come up, feel free. So Kyle's a serial entrepreneur, also my colleague at the UNLV Office of Economic Development. And I want to ask you, so you can kind of help kick us off in like the ideation phase. As an entrepreneur, what excites you about the outdoor industry?
Oh man, definitely on the spot. No, I love how passionate any participant in the outdoor industry is, right? Whatever their niche is, whether it's hunting or fishing or canoeing, skiing, whatever it is, those people get such a charge out of doing whatever sport they're passionate about, and just getting out into nature. I think both of those things couple to sort of result in really passionate participants in that space.
Yeah, very cool. Thank you. I appreciate that insight. And you hit on a really great point and something that I'll kind of use to pivot towards why it's interesting to develop gear specifically in the outdoor space. Mm-hmm. And that is outdoor recreation sometimes can be, unfortunately, pretty expensive to get into. And when you're talking about developing new products or things that make you safer or ways to recreate that maybe people haven't thought of before, there is a large percentage of recreators that are willing to drop serious money on new and innovative gear. And I say that because that's kind of where my husband and I find ourselves in that little space where, if we're going to REI or a local gear shop and there's like some new fancy climbing piece of gear, we're like, oh my gosh, wouldn't it be so nice if we added this to our rack? This would be phenomenal. So it's kind of, you're innovating in a space where the consumers are like really willing to drop some serious cash. So thank you for letting me pick your brain as like a entrepreneur in the space.
No, absolutely.
Any other imparting words?
Well, before Kyle leaves, I think what's interesting, how many people in here have thought of an idea before that is an innovation in outdoor recreation? Are there anybody in this room that has an outdoor recreation invention?
Kyle, raise your hand.
Improvement?
Colin, raise your hand.
Okay, so if I can pick on you for just a second. Do you find obstacles or barriers to getting your idea out there, or do you find yourself looking for a specific type of assistance or help that would move you along faster?
Well, I own a company in the space, so I've been producing product for like almost 20 years.
So you managed to figure it out before this. What advice would you give then to someone else who's got an innovative idea in this space for getting it moving and getting it forward?
That's a big question. I think ultimately you have to understand your market first. I mean, your market is key. I mean, there's a lot of different innovative ideas. I mean, I have a neighbor that was talking to me recently about a patent. He has an idea, but I own a patent in the outdoor space, and so even though you have a patent business, it doesn't mean it creates a market. So I think, first of all, you need to look at your market share, understand what your market is, and then you have to have a good business strategy. So maybe you'll come up with an idea without testing the market first. So I think I'll probably start there, validate the market.
It's almost like I set him up to answer me that way. Oh my gosh, that's a perfect answer actually, because it's something that we see a lot. So Kyle, his background, he has an engineering background, also he has an MBA. He spent time at the UNLV Rebel Venture Fund, so he's been able to dive into doing due diligence, which is like checking into all the things that you're talking about. Is there a market for what somebody's invented and all of this? So I love the way that your brain works in this exact space. And then here comes Mandy with all of this marketing understanding and knowing how do you find your market and then how do you reach them and what's the possibility for building a business there. We have a makerspace where people can prototype, where they can ideate what it is that they think that they want to invent and then test it and find out, can it actually do what you think it can do? And all of those things can happen with assistance that is no cost, by the way, and you have all the availability of time. If you're willing to give your time to this team of advisors, they'll give their time back to you as you develop whatever your concept is in your business. Everything from that really hard stuff like, do I have a market? How do I build a business plan around this? So let me ask you this. Do you consider yourself a business person first or an innovator, or how do you categorize yourself first, right?
I would say I'm like an engineer entrepreneur. I mean, I have a degree in engineering, and so there's always that element to whatever I've done from a startup perspective. Entrepreneurial for sure. That's probably where I would start.
So many people that we talk to, right, they have this engineering mindset or innovative mindset, or they're super passionate like Mandy is about the space, and they see an improvement that can happen, right? Like, oh, if I invent this thing, it will make this easier, or it'll help people to access it, whatever. But their knowledge base is not necessarily in building a company and finding the investors or getting it to the next step, getting through the patenting and protection process. Do you even need a patent for what you have? Is that even necessary to go through that process? I just wanted to jump in here because I don't want you to leave, and I don't want you to leave without this audience understanding that there is a tremendous resource that exists in this community through UNLV's, SBDC, and now also with this Outdoor Business Coalition that exists here for all of you to help you take your ideas and move them forward to the market. And there's not much of a limit to the type of help that we can provide. There's access to all of these other networks and organizations around the community. There's access to funding. There's access to interns. And there's a few people in this room here that we've been working with to help them build their companies. And we won't stop if you don't stop. And so that is something I just want to make sure that everybody who's here, if you've got an idea, whether it's in the outdoor recreation space or not, this team is here to help you move it forward and help you be successful in doing that.
Absolutely.
So there, I'm just pumping you guys up and bragging on you.
Yeah, no, that's
Jamie. That's
actually a nice plug. So my day job is going to be the SBDC. Yeah.
Yeah, right? So eloquent.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was excited to sort of jump in today. Sorry for being late.
No.
But yeah, I'm excited to jump into this conversation because Las Vegas is a really interesting sort of fertile ground for some of this to develop. As Jamie's pointing out, like we have a very talented network of advisors with a bunch of different skill sets, both at the SBDC and other free or low-cost resources in the area. There's a ton of traffic coming into town to do outdoor recreation in all of its various forms. And a lot of people are traveling here specifically to participate in some of those activities. Other states that get that are like Denver and, cities that are 6+ million people, like places that get much higher traffic. But we're this sort of interesting, like big, small town where these types of events happen and the SBDC exists and is like very approachable. Come into the office anytime. Makerspaces exist. The work
Tech
that Mandy's
alleys
doing.
exist.
Tech alleys exist, yeah. And so it's a very exciting place to be an entrepreneur specifically and more, or generally, and more specifically an outdoor entrepreneur.
Yeah, and to go back to at the very beginning, everybody who raised their hand about how many of you enjoy recreating outdoors. Really what this whole presentation is really to help legitimize the industry as a space that you can innovate, so you don't have to be a daytime entrepreneur and an afternoon evening recreator. You can be all of that together. And here is this spot right here. Vegas is the place to do that. So that's my ending. Thank you, Kyle.
Of course.
I appreciate you.
Does anybody have any questions for Kyle before he?
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
So what do you do?
On which side of things? Day job or side hustle? Yeah, so I have a... Yeah, I have a background in engineering. I was a part of various entrepreneurship endeavors at previous employers, and since I've come out here, through the MBA work and through my own personal sort of interest, right now I'm mostly pursuing like SBDC work, but then also a sort of a camp gadget, like camping equipment type invention, and the pain point that I've really identified and sort of gotten into. Side note, let me rewind the tape. I love that you pointed out knowing your customer and understanding the market. That's so many engineers jump right into solution, and that's why we can find a titanium toothpick if we really want to, right? You can find the widget to solve any need, but if we step back and think about the marketplace, that's the foundation for a business plan and not just a widget. So the problem statement that I really resonated with was that moment between I want to go camping and I'm in the field going camping, right? Often that's days or a week of pulling pieces and parts together and going and like, oh, where did I put my tent? Okay, I got to go grab that. And oh man, I want to make pancakes, so I got to go and find a spatula and maybe a mixing bowl and like put that in a bin. And then when you come back, you got to like undo all of that work. That to me has seemed to be a ubiquitous experience for people going into the outdoor space, whether it's camping or tailgating, barbecuing, whatever, picnicking. And so that's a space that I'm really passionate about. One, because I like camping. Two, because I like being outdoors. And three, because I love cooking. And so, that starts to turn into maybe a camp kitchen gadget of some sort. Yeah. And so I don't have any IP filed yet, so I'm not going to get too into specifics. But that's a passion, a pain point that I think a lot of people can resonate with, and I'm excited about. So that's what led me here today. Yeah, of course. Anything else?
How do you guys see technology integrating into this, right? Like, I know we talked about drones a little bit, right? And I know, for instance, like esports is the fastest growing sport on earth right now, right? And so when we look at that, do you see crossover between that area, or what type of integrations do you see?
I'm going to throw out right away that mapping is a huge area for like specifically digital technology development in the outdoor industry. Like I mentioned before, Nevada's public land percentage is 86%. And it's impossible to track all of that and map it effectively on foot. So there's a lot of mapping technology that's being developed or has been developed that is a good example of that. The other thing that's really can prove to be an issue, I know specifically for folks who enjoy hunting as a recreational sport, the amount of land managers that exist here in Nevada are like sundry. There's like way too many of them. And it's often very difficult to tell if I'm in the wilderness, whose land am I standing on? And am I allowed to recreate here?
Right.
There is mapping technology that is, developed for that specific purpose, and that is continually being developed and made better. And that's a really, in my mind, easy to understand example of how digital technology really makes recreating and outdoor industry activities better and easier.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
And outdoor safety is a big one as well. I mean, InReach continually sort of turning their equipment into micro-sized pieces of equipment. I mean, my wife hiked the Appalachian Trail in 2016, and the only option for GPS tracking at that point was like a pound-and-a-half shoulder-mounted, like basically satellite cell phone. And now I see people hiking long trails all the time with a pager, or like basically like it's just a little tiny little thing that's occasionally pinging their loved ones that they're safe and moving. or in an event of an emergency, they've got a button they can press, right? I mean, so that's a really interesting development. And I think the future is sort of an interesting sort of wild frontier where the more things minimize and become power efficient, and you can maybe harvest wind, water, or solar power in the field, water being purification techniques. I mean, all of that technology is sort of being developed for military and other uses, and it will eventually make it into the outdoor space. It just takes someone going like, oh, that's a technology that I could apply over here.
Absolutely. And I think that one of the common denominators in all of those things that you just mentioned is like safety and accessibility, right? Because when people are able to go to a place, inevitably in our minds, we want to then go further.
100%.
And making that gap safer, more accessible, easier to communicate in, all of that is innovation that is just, it's just right there, and people want to engage with it, right? Yeah. You mentioned the Garmin. I don't know how many of you guys have ever been like in Red Rock and you've seen those search and rescue helicopters fly over. I don't know about any of you. I don't have any service in Red Rock. So the way that people are able to communicate if they need that emergency service is through the Garmin, right? That kind of thing is widely, how do I want to phrase this? Technology like that is what makes us able to recreate and safe when we recreate. Mm-hmm. And yeah, the water purification is another big one, especially with the topic of water scarcity here in Southern Nevada. Like that kind of conservation technology is just, I mean, it's just right there ready for innovators. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about how technology, like for instance, water purification or the Garmin technology where you can find somebody in an area that's not serviceable with regular cell service, those types of technologies, can you talk about how that can expand the opportunities of places that we can recreate and then lessen the burden on some of the over-recreated places and how that helps the environment?
Absolutely, and that's a very prevalent discussion that's happening. Like I mentioned before, the outdoor industry is a space that private, nonprofit, pseudo-government, and government agencies all interact together like no other industry that exists, and that's a really good example. I'm sure that most of you guys have been to Red Rock National Conservation Area, and you may have also heard it is getting loved to death, really. And because it's a beautiful space, I go there weekly, probably multiple times a week to recreate because it's a gorgeous spot and it's very accessible. There's parking spots, there is a visitor center, there's trailhead signs everywhere. It's easy to recreate in that space. So what happens is, because it's easy to recreate there, crowds and crowds of people go there, and then we end up loving our spaces to death. In my mind, and with a lot of communication that I've had with other like conservation nonprofits and government agencies, and kind of this unanimous sentiment that we all share is that by increasing accessibility to other public lands, the less people will love our other parks to death. So, and this is very relevant. So Jamie, I'm glad you mentioned this. East Las Vegas right now, there is a movement to get Frenchman Mountains designated as a national monument. Right now it's just an area of ecological concern, which does come with some protections, but by establishing it as a national monument, you get more protections, more funds, more resources to keep the area safe and to make it accessible so that we're not all flocking to Red Rock or all flocking to Lake Mead and then, burdening those spaces. So by innovating and proving economic impact for public lands, the easier we are able to advocate for the protection of those from government agencies, because money talks, right? If we can prove, and we can prove because the data exists, public lands are good for the economy. If we can continue to do that, we then are able to protect our spaces better, allow more access, contribute to community development, and make public lands easy and accessible for everybody.
Nice.
Yeah. Not John.
Yeah, I just want to say that what is interesting is in in this sense is that in the tourism realm, we keep hearing increasingly the word niche tourism. So the idea is, as you were saying also, startups, to finding your niche. So we are seeing that right now, you have like niche tourism, finding like a very, very specific area is the new, where I see the most successful right now businesses operating there. For example, and it's also an idea of how to redistribute tourists around the place, right? Because if you invest in the niche tourism of outdoor recreation, hiking, right, or mountain biking, you can move some tourist flows from Red Rock somewhere else in a way that can be distributed. So this idea of a niche is very good, I think, from both a marketing perspective for a start, and I'm seeing extremely, specific targets today in tourism, like literally extremely specific targets to, so you also have like the micro niche of the macro niche. For example, you can have the macro niche of the outdoor recreation and the micro niche of mountain biking, just used to move those tourists maybe from Red Rock somewhere else. And this is important not only for sustainability, but as I said again, I'm really seeing that the startups that I'm studying and the businesses that I'm studying is that they focus on a really, really specific niche. They do their homework and they know their audience. And that's both sustainable, which is great, and against over-tourism, and helps the businesses as well.
Mm-hmm. Marta, can you talk a little bit about, you mentioned when you were up here before your research in the historic West Side. Will you talk a little bit or elaborate a little bit more on what you found out about folks talking about outdoor recreation in that community?
Absolutely. So you can hear me, right? Yes, I'm Italian. You can hear me.
If you want to.
If you want a question.
Feel like
All right. So, historic West Side. It's not like first of all, just to let you know what I did. I conducted interviews with historian Betty White in the historic West Side. She's an amazing expert on the West Side, because our ideas was, if we do some startups work, let's start from the voices of the community. Let's sit 1 hour with, we interviewed 30 so far, but we're gonna do more. Let's interview people. Let's sit for 1 hour with small business owners, community activists, land owners in the West Side, to include their voices in the research. So, and what everyone said is the need for safe outdoor spaces, especially for young people. They really think that safe outdoor spaces can change the life of young people there. They can have sports, so development of sports, some kind of fields, whatever, right? Football fields. I know that they have a pretty cool baseball league there, the baseball, but still they need help. So this idea of helping, they really, people, I love, I'm a sociologist, and I love how people connected this idea of outdoor recreation and having parks to youth development. And we are seeing some of the businesses in our program, the small businesses in our program, are really interested in sustainability. For example, we are trying to help this business giving tours of the West Side on an electric car. Like this sort of a golf cart fancier, and it's very nice, right? Again, a bunch of obstacles, bureaucratic obstacles, because there is no regulation for that right now. So again, bureaucracy is something that our businesses and other people we are interviewing, not only business owners, but like every day, like community members, they keep encountering, right? But so yeah, so this idea of outdoor recreation, and they see it really changing the community. They have a new also community garden there that is very helpful. We are collaborating with Greenside Lab, and they have like vertical farming in a place. Think about it, that our interviewees keep using the word desert. This is a food desert, so people don't have access to healthy food. So it will be great to have startups working on that, and we have startups working on that. Sports desert, this is a sports desert. Our kids don't know where to play in a safe space, right? So it's a medical desert. It's like there are no pharmacies, there are no enough doctors there, right? So yeah, it's interesting again, the crazy role that outdoor
outdoor recreation has in all of that. It's right there, and startups.
Yeah, thank you, Marta. That's really insightful. And it goes to the point, again, how integral the outdoor industry and the outdoor economy is in community development. And it touches people in ways that other business industries don't. Anyway, yeah.
So what is the mission and let's say like the horizon goals for the Outdoor Business Coalition?
Thank you for asking. Yeah. So our mission is really, it's several things. We really, well, here's kind of the overarching one. We want to strengthen the outdoor industry here in Nevada specifically. And that looks like a lot of different things. It's protecting the spaces that we play. It's supporting vibrant economies. It's helping to promote health of communities and people. And really that, again, shows how vast the industry is because it involves so many of those different pieces. Also, a large part of what we do is we, like I mentioned before, advocate on local, state, and federal levels for the outdoor industry and investment in the industry. Me personally, what I would like to see the coalition do, and this is what I'm kind of trying to gauge a little bit of interest in with this conversation today, is what is the interest in a specific outdoor industry accelerator? What is the interest for people to build businesses in this space? And if we can have the interest, how can we create that opportunity? That's my big pie in the sky dream, is I would love to have a Vegas outdoor industry accelerator. I, like I mentioned before, have talked with Founded Outdoors, and they have validated my idea very graciously that, you know, hyper-local accelerators are really, really successful. So now, you know, just looking for pockets of entrepreneurs who are interested in developing in the space. But that's kind of where I see the coalition moving, as long as I'm driving the car, is how can we support startup and innovation and development and entrepreneurship in the outdoor industry here in Nevada. Yeah. Thank you for that question, Jamie.
Oh, well, I think that's an excellent answer.
Yeah.
What do you need for an accelerator to exist?
So what I have gone ahead and done is I've sourced some experts on curriculum writing specifically for outdoor entrepreneurs. That's where I kind of lack, like with the SBDC, I'm paid to be a generalist. And so I have to have that kind of overarching knowledge of all types of businesses and all types of industries. So what I have done is, and those that I have reached out to have been very kind in helping me to kind of narrow down specifically what is helpful to startup businesses and specifically tech businesses. So now what I need is money. But in order for me to go in and ask for money, really what I need is for people to say, yeah, if that existed, I would definitely take advantage of that, because that's how I go and make in good faith ask and, you know, garner a little bit of support for that type of a program.
And when you say accelerator, you mean like a Y Combinator? You know, Are you familiar with Y Combinator?
No, I'm not. Sorry.
Yes, that's exactly what we're talking
Yeah.
about.
You want that specifically in the outdoor space for the West?
Yes. So the one that I can think of to kind of take the bare bones and do something here that's a little bit more Western specific is North Carolina has a great one that's called Made in the Mountains. And that is a startup accelerator that is specifically for outdoor industry, business, and technology development. They do a lot of really great work. I just attended their outdoor economy conference a couple of weeks ago. And the support that they have there is just unbelievable. And to me, the fact that they have that on the East Coast and we don't have one on the West Coast where all the public land is, it just blows my mind. So maybe it comes from a place of jealousy or passion or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, it definitely, back to your question, yeah, an accelerator, and Jamie's nodding. So I'm going to say yes. Yeah, Kyle.
So another example, I know that REI and possibly a company called Moosejaw both have had accelerators in the past, and they both served as an accelerator and an on-ramp to like mass retail.
Mm-hmm.
And so knowing that we have a much broader reach than retail alone, how would you want that accelerator to sort of, I don't know, other embodiments of outdoor recreation?
Yeah, good question. And the only, well, the thing that I think goes, let me think, how do I want to phrase this? Really, I think that it's sourcing expertise. And again, that's where I feel like I need folks to jump on board with me in order to make this happen. Is I bring a lot of passion. I see a huge opportunity, but that doesn't mean that I'm the expert in running an accelerator. And so bringing in industry experts or business genre experts, if you will, to kind of help me to develop the curriculum or segment certain types of outdoor industry businesses is really critical in my mind for the success of a program like this. Yeah, does that answer your
And if
question?
I can jump in just a
Yeah.
second, just because accelerators is my bag. So
Yeah.
what we could use from everybody here, if you are interested, or from anybody really, so in an accelerator, just let's actually dial this back for anybody who doesn't know and doesn't want to raise their hand and ask, what are you even talking about an accelerator, right? First time I heard the word incubator, I was like, isn't that where you put babies when they're born in the hospital? No, it's also a thing where you grow a baby that's a business. And then you incubate that little baby, and then it turns out to actually make money for you as an actual company. So incubator, we'll start there. That is very early stage. I'm trying to understand if this is a good business idea. It's ideation. I'm wondering if it's feasible. I'm looking at things like my market size. Is this an actual concept, and what do I need as an entrepreneur to put this business together? I find all of that out in an incubator type of environment if I'm going into a structured environment to create my company. And there are resources there that are helping me, like telling me, here's how you create a business plan or a marketing plan, here's how you assess your market and decide whether this is worth it. And here's some access maybe to early stage capital to get you going and some advice. That's an incubator. An accelerator is the next level of that. You've built your idea, you know that this is a feasible concept, and you've got something that's got some legs to it. It's a real concept that you can build out on. Now you need to either develop your prototype, or you've got to build out the actual business. Maybe find proof of concept by building your item, your product, your service, and then getting a small sample of customers who use it and show that this thing's actually useful. And then you find connection and maybe even funding to further develop what it is that you've got. The acceleration phase is like, okay, you have a good idea, but now let's put all the rest of the resources that you need behind it. One of the most important things to an accelerator is access to funding, money, okay? So let's put that in the parking lot, because we all need money to do what we're doing, and that is a separate conversation, but it exists there. The second most important thing in my mind to an accelerator are mentors. People who have been through business before, and especially people who have been through business in your space. Because they've already screwed up, which is wonderful, because you don't have to screw up the same way they did, right? Or they've learned things, or they've seen how something's changed, and they can guide you to that. They also have a great network, because they've already been doing this. So if they like what you're doing and they take, an interest in you, they can then expose you to their funding network, their investor network, their customer network, their supplier network or vendor network, right? Because those are all the things that you need to make money and actually make your business go. You need somebody to buy what you're selling, and then you need a supplier to help you keep moving, right? All of those connections you can find through mentorship. And so for those of you who are involved in business, or already have something like that going, I'm just going to advocate for you here. Mandy could use your help even just as a mentor. If you want to be involved in what's going on, even just peripherally, and you're interested in what she's building, and there's a company that comes through and they've got a question or want to have some advice, if you were to serve in that role, not only would you be helping Mandy, which we love Mandy, you'll be helping the community, you'll be helping to grow up a new business. And if you're really, synchronous, you might even find that that's something that you want to get involved in further. Maybe you're going to invest in that company. Maybe you're going to come together with them and be part of their story. There's a lot of opportunities that might exist. So wherever your level that you care about, if you're just really trying to help your community grow or help other entrepreneurs, shoot, maybe you want to grow your ecosystem, because you know this, the more that you build other things that are in your ecosystem around you, the more business comes to you. Have anybody ever noticed how there's never just one car dealership on a road? There's like 75 of them, because they're like, great, now we've got a spot where everybody comes to buy their cars. And that is the same thing that happens in lots of type of business. You see there's a restaurant that goes up and other restaurants come around it. They don't say like, oh, I can't put a restaurant because there's already one there. No, they recognize that more begets more. And that's what happens when we can all help each other and mentor each other. So I'll put the plug out there for that. If you're not in a place to mentor, I think too, joining into the groups and like this, and coming to these types of environments where you're meeting the other people who might have something to share is also very beneficial. But
Absolutely.
if there's something else that you need from the audience as an ask, then I'll allow you to do that. But from my perspective, I think probably more people to join in and help build this community.
Yes, and that is exactly what I think the most realistic goal is after this talk right here, is to just be a part of the community. Let me know verbally or written that you're interested in something like this, that it would be beneficial to you as an entrepreneur. And I'm going to put on my email so you guys can all reach out to me. But I think that the more data that we can get on how many people would be interested in an accelerator or resources that are specific to outdoor industry businesses, the more that we can advocate that this is a space for investment for that kind of a program. So I'll throw out another program that's proven to be very successful, and that's the PA Wilds Center for Entrepreneurship. In Pennsylvania, of all places, they got this massive Economic Development Administration grant to foster outdoor industry entrepreneurship. In Pennsylvania, I don't know why, but no hate to Pennsylvania. But that's the kind of community and support and opportunity that I would like to bring here, because we already have the assets in our public lands. We already have the parks. We already have the recreators. So let's support the entrepreneurs now. So please, if this is at all interesting to you, please send me an email and let me know, because that's going to help me get some more support, funding, expertise, etc., to get a program like this going.
And with that, it is noon. So let's open up to any questions that we have before we wrap it up and move on over to the lunch. Does anybody have any questions for Mandy before we leave today? No? Okay. Thank you very much, everybody.